prospects squaring off. Coming up this weekend, we have Mokaev looking to push his 30-fight undefeated streak going back to his amateur days, taking on Inner G Charles Johnson, flyweight champ over with the LFA. And Matt, when I do look at this fight, I mean, I think this is so much fun. You look at it for Charles Johnson, a ton of experience pre-UFC, but if I back it up, I mean, Mokaev is one of the hottest prospects in all of MMA, 23-0 as an amateur, two-time IMMAF world champion. He's a European champion. You look at it, I mean, he left a crazy life as a refugee out of Dagestan, moved to Wigan, started training at Team Kalbon as a young kid. And I mean, he parlayed everything at the age of like 15 when he started his MMA career all the way up to 21, just continues to win. He was a wrestling champion when he was in high school. He is now parlayed that again into the world of jiu-jitsu. Like, there's so many different aspects of his game, of just Mokaev, and you can pick out individual fights and say, okay, he gained this in this fight, or he showed us an extra wrinkle in this fight. But when it all boils down to it, I mean, this guy is lightning quick, very precise with his takedowns. And when it comes to his striking, little bit unorthodox, pretty low on his boxing, and pretty kick heavy when it comes to it. But what I absolutely love out of Mokaev, I actually have a comparable, and I think it's a little bit of a reach, and it's not just because they're undefeated, but I think, geez, who's another guy in the lower weight classes that's a great wrestler and very kick heavy and doesn't like to box? It's Umar Nurmagomedov. And when I look at both of these guys, they do a lot of things similar, switching stances. I'd say Nurmagomedov is obviously more polished, even though he has less fights. But when I watch Mokaev, this is a guy that I'm very, very excited about. And he's been training an American top team for this camp.
And that's a really exciting note, because Mokaev is of that like SS tier prospect. And it's wild. You know, on the last pay-per-view, it was, okay, Adesanya fighting, he's the champion. But we kind of knew that 2 fights before the main event, we were going to get the winner of that being Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. The winner of that fight was going to then fight the winner of the main event. And that's a really fun storyline to have. I have a very, 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 very strong feeling that Mokaev is going to be a guy who is going to headline one of these cards eventually. I know that's a wild thing to say, but I genuinely do think he is of that ilk of a prospect. I know people are going to look more to like Paddy Pimblett in this card and think, wow, he is going to be that future superstar. But I've got to be honest, being only 6-0 in his professional career, and like you said, he has an extensive amateur MMA career, which we don't often see, if we're being completely honest. Like, amateur ranks and amateur fights are something that is definitely used to its fullest potential in the MMA world. It's probably just because, hey, you attain a lot of damage in this sport, so you probably don't want to burn yourself out on the regional scene as much as you do once you get up to the bigger shows. But for Mokaev, it feels like his regional experience has really molded him into a much more refined fighter than you would expect for being only 21 years old. And that's the crazy thing. You might look at a guy in Paddy Pimblett and think, okay, he has the higher ceiling, or he's better right now. But the thing is, he's 27. He's had 6 years to get better, fighting great fighters. I really do think for where Mokaev is in his career, he's much further along than the majority of 21-year-olds with 6 fights. I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to give him like, he's going to be a Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I think he's much closer to Rakhmonov than he is a Sage Northcutt. And I hope that's not a hot take.
No, and I mean, going down through it, Matt, like, we focus on him a lot, and there's going to be a lot of the focus this week on Mokaev. It's not going to be the story about the guy who's from the States going over to the UK to try and get some fights, to try and get a win. But when I did look at Charles Johnson, this is one of the more interesting tape study dives that I've done in a little bit of time, because you look at it, I mean, former LFA flyweight champ, he won the belt in the main event of LFA 110. He was the co-main event of LFA 100. You had Victor Altamirano in the main event. He's now in the UFC. He defended the belt at LFA 114 and again at LFA 122. And he won those fights by finish. Like, you like to see that. Now, he did win the belt by split decision, and I don't know if he really won. If Horiguchi didn't kick him in the nuts and lost a point early in that fight, I actually thought that Horiguchi won that fight, even with the kick to the nuts, because it was a close fight. Horiguchi was kind of pressuring the action. If you only watch the 5th round, you're like, oh, well, Johnson definitely won that fight. But go back and watch the entirety, because it was a very close fight. I thought Horiguchi won. But overall, when you look at Charles Johnson and you just watch him fight, I think, geez, this guy's a really good wrestler. This guy's a really good kicker. And then I really went really, really deep. Like, he's 11-2. The 2 losses are to Brandon Royval in 2018, which is fair, and then a loss to Shorty Rock's Sean Santella back in also 2018. Those are 2 real deal 125ers. I know Shorty Rock's not in the UFC, but look at his friggin' record. He's been around. MMA fans know him. If you don't, get yourself familiar with him. But they mentioned in one of the LFA fights, like, this guy's a Golden Gloves boxer. So I thought, okay. So from 2017 to 2020, Charles Johnson had a boxing career, Matt, and it's the Kay Hansen boxing career. He went 1-5-4 as a pro boxer.
Yeah, this is the thing. Anyone can fight in Golden Gloves. Like, anybody can do it. It's just an amateur tournament. Being in Golden Gloves means nothing.
So I see all of that, and I go, okay, so he's an AAU national champion in track and field. He got a scholarship at the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. He's a 2-time national champion in steeplechase at Southeastern Missouri State. So you know that the cardio is good, and obviously he's had all these 5-round fights. Go on. His cardio is great. Like, he wrestles, he strikes, he turns it on as the fights go on, which might not help in a 3-round atmosphere, but that's neither here nor there. But again, when I went back and I watched these fights, his last fight when he took on Mota, the fight was at home. He's a St. Louis guy. LFA's in St. Louis. He walked out to Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill. So big 76ers fan. I like that. Weirdest rear hair flex I've ever seen. Like, he's got the salad in the back, but that's it. Like, he shaves his head and then leaves a little tuft in the back. I don't know what that's about. I don't really like it. But when I watch this one, I mean, Mota catches a kick. He takes Johnson down. I thought, ooh, that's bad. And that continued to happen throughout the fight. But I'm 3 minutes into round 1, Matt, and I went, I'm sorry. So this Charles Johnson guy that I've been told is a Golden Gloves boxer. He's boxed pro. He's 1-5-4. I literally wrote down 3 minutes into round 1. Is he really a boxer? And then I went and watched the rest of his fights. He is no boxer. No boxer.
Yeah. I have no idea how he's going to have success against Muhammad Mokaev at range in this fight, because here's the problem.
His kicks.
If Johnson throws kicks, though, he's immediately getting taken down. And it's going to happen over and over and over again. And Mokaev has the kind of pace to where if he does take you down in that first round, you're going to be exhausted trying to get back up. It's one of those smothering styles where he's going to keep on breaking your base down over and over and over again. And if Johnson isn't able to get Mokaev's respect at range with like a front kick up the middle, like Yair hit Brian Ortega with, like, he's going to have to hit him with something wild to get his respect early, because I really do think Mokaev's going to be allowed to have really constant forward pressure throughout this fight. And I think that's going to be his key to success, because I do like how he cuts the cage off for a guy who is only 21 years old. Again, he is very, he's experienced, but not really. And that's the thing. Again, he does have all that amateur experience, like we've said, but he is so young in his professional career that he fights like a much more experienced fighter than he probably should. And I do think that his cage cutting and his forward pressure is going to be the key to this fight, because if Johnson can't use his feet to evade Mokaev and his takedown attempts,
and his feet are great.
They are really good. But if he tries to make this a wrestling match, is to like, hey, I'm a pretty good grappler too, he's going to get out grappled 10 times out of 10 in this matchup.
My big thing, Johnson moves a lot, and it's not a negative. It is not a negative. We say this a lot, like, oh, they move too much. Why do they move so much? They tire themselves out, or they end up walking into punches. Charles Johnson has really, really good striking defense, and it should be noted, 2019 Tiger Muay Thai scholarship winner, so you get to go over there, you get to train. In 2016, Mallory Martin was also a Tiger Muay Thai scholarship winner, so take it all with a grain of salt. But when it comes to his striking, I figured, okay, I did all this outside research. I'm expecting a boxer, and what do I get? A guy that throws a lot of teep kicks, a guy that throws a lot of leg kicks and head kicks, and doesn't really throw much in combination until he tires out his opponent. And then you watch this guy box, and when he has his opponent tired and he pressures them up against the cage, he's ripping to the body and then coming up to the head. He really is a lot of fun to watch like that. Constant pressure, really putting things together. But again, he gets his kicks caught fair bit, and his takedown defense is a little bit questionable for a guy that I expected to have pretty good wrestling. So when I do look at the odds in this one, Matt, Muhammad Mokaev open a minus 490 favorite, still roughly there, minus 485. If you look at it for Johnson, open plus 380, plus 360 or thereabouts. So Mokaev is a pretty big favorite. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Again, surprised us there to you, but I'm going to say over under 90% Mokaev.
I'll say over. I think it'll be like 98, one of those ones.
Yeah, 1,183 votes, 94% Mokaev, 27% by decision, 58% by submission for the 6% that have Johnson, 51% by decision, 39% by knockout. I go back and I watch that fight that Muhammad Mokaev had against Abdul Hussein out of Finland. I don't know why I said it, Finland. That's That's like an American going, oh, you know that province in Canada, that Newfoundland. No, it's Newfoundland. But sorry, so for the Finnish people out there, I apologize, Finland. But when I do look at that fight against Abdul Hussein, he's one of my can't miss prospects. Even though he lost to Muhammad Mokaev, I think he's such a great fighter. I broke this down the last time we talked about Mokaev. So if you want to hear about Abdul Hussein, I've talked about him in different shows too. But when Mokaev beat him, he broke him down and he just kept going and going and going and going. I like to see that against a well-seasoned guy like Abdul Hussein. I think Charles Johnson is a great test. I think he's an even better test than Cody Durden. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. You can't count Johnson out because he has that great cardio. Mokaev, if he overexpends himself early on, maybe he has to pay for it as the fight progresses. But for me, yeah, I have Muhammad Mokaev here. I think he's, with his kicks, the way that he breaks down all three levels, both guys do it similarly. I like the speed out of Mokaev, but the guy's relentless for those takedown attempts. And I think that's what's going to be able to win him the fight if he's able to get it done.
Yeah, I think Mokaev's going to win this fight unless we get like a weird Adriano Martins versus Islam Makhachev kind of knockout. Like, I really don't. Exactly. It's MMA. There's 4-ounce gloves. Everybody's a knockout artist because of that. But again, I do think Mokaev's probably the best prospect on this whole entire card that features Paddy Pimblett and also the prospect himself, Nathaniel Wood. I know how much you hate that nickname. So I really do think he is one of the next big stars in the UFC. Only time will tell. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about this stuff before, but I'm really excited about this matchup.
Both of us going with a guy who featured Hasbullah over on his Instagram page not that long ago, Muhammad Mokaev, to get the win. Let us know down below in the comment section if you really like the former LFA flyweight champ making his UFC debut. It's Energy Charles Johnson. We got a big time card coming up, including that matchup that you mentioned. Paddy Pimblett, he's taking on Jordan Leavitt. You're not going to want to miss this. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.